I'm just about to put together a photo album of all the photographs I've taken this year in 2020, both while I was stargazing and of photographs of the COVID-19 crisis and of the rioting. So I've been going through my Facebook feeds because I upload most of those photos onto Facebook. I gotta be careful that my other people don't show up in this video. And I found the resolution I made last year. My goal in 2020, look at the date on there, November 30, 2019, before we had COVID-19 and obviously before a lot of other events of this year. My goal in 2020 is to normalize my relationship to food. I become a beast anytime something or someone gets in between me and my food. For example, you do not want to be stuck in traffic with me when I'm racing to get food, or try to talk to me when I want you out of the room so I can eat. That's what I'm talking about in terms of an unhealthy relationship. And I think I know why I wrote that. I had just gotten into argument with one of my clients because he came 30 minutes early to a meeting, and I had to give up. I was in the middle of eating dinner, and it made me uncomfortable. And so for the most part, I've been attacking that resolution. The only thing that threw me a little bit is the recent cold weather. Fasting is a whole lot more challenging when you're cold, especially when you combine cold with being lonely, right? When you can't go out, COVID-19, things are empty, and I live with roommates who don't have very hygienic habits, so I often leave a window open, so even inside I'm kind of cold. That kind of threw me a little bit with my resolution. Oh well, I'll figure that out as I go. We still got a couple more months of cold weather, so I guess that's one of those things you learn as you go. But I would say it's been a relatively successful resolution. Very rarely do I still talk about last year's resolution by November, right? I think most people can attest to that, right? It's hard enough to talk about the resolution in March, let alone November. I have another resolution for next year, or maybe even the remainder of this year. I have a hard time with nonverbal communication, getting people to know what I'm thinking. So for example, that client who didn't know that I wanted to finish my dinner before starting, even though he was 30 minutes early. I have a hard time beaming what I'm thinking into somebody's head. Maybe I just need to say it out loud. The tricky part is when what I want to say is a little bit embarrassing. So many years ago when I was working on my PhD, I had a little bit of a difficulty. I was trying to get a hold of this was back when it was not so popular. I wanted to stand at my desk because I didn't want to spend 8-9 hours a day sitting. And so I looked around me and found a bookshelf full of old books. They were covered with spider webs. I didn't think they belonged to anybody. So I grabbed about 5 or 6 of those books to put on my table, and I put my computer on top of the books, and I just called it a day. And later that day, my classmate who was sharing the office with me comes into the room screaming, his books are missing, somebody stole his books. He was upset that I left the door unlocked, and somebody came in and said, I knew what he was talking about, the books on my table, but I was too embarrassed to confess that I wanted to stand. And so out of panic, I went out of the office and just took a walk. And I allowed him to find the books. And he was very upset when he found that I had took the books, and he talked to our dean. And I was still embarrassed to tell the dean that I wanted a standing desk. You know, had I just said, I'm sorry, I didn't realize the books belonged to Roger. I prefer standing because obviously it's not very healthy. I was overweight at the time. Had I just said that, yeah, it might have been embarrassing that I wanted a standing desk long before, this was back in the mid-2000s, long before anybody thought of that, but at least I wouldn't have gotten in trouble for stealing somebody's books. That's the kind of trouble I used to run into because I had another time where embarrassment became a barrier, and where I wish I could communicate non-verbally to avoid the embarrassment. I had found somebody's library card on the ground at the campus, and I looked at the name on the library card, and I thought it might be an attractive girl. It was a Polish name, and I got excited, and I posted a flyer at the building saying, if you lost your library card, please call me and then I put my number on there. And once again, a couple days later, I get a call from campus security saying, why am I taking somebody's library card? And I got embarrassed to confess why I wanted the girl to call me directly instead of turning it over to campus security. And so that's the kind of trouble I run into. That's why I wish I could communicate non-verbally. But more importantly, maybe I should balance when I need to speak up versus being embarrassed to speak up. And especially if I just want to eat, right? That was a little bit of an embarrassment too. I didn't want to confess that I had like a borderline eating disorder, that my food was more important than the client, even though he showed up 30 minutes early. Maybe I just need to open up a little bit more. So that will be the resolution going forward. Fortunately, in 2020, I haven't had to talk to people in person. It's easier to open up about these things when it's over Zoom. Like you see on my YouTube, I open up so much about this. It's a little bit harder when you have somebody who can respond in person, right? When you can only respond in the comments, it's a little bit easier for me to open up. So that's been a big benefit for me this past year.